They don't ignore you because they don't care. They're quiet because they're scared. That silence you're hearing, it's not indifference. It's not coldness. It's fear. Deep, paralyzing fear that if they let you get too close, they're going to lose everything. You've got to stop assuming silence means someone doesn't feel. Because sometimes silence screams louder than words. When someone with avoidant tendencies goes quiet, it's because their brain is in overdrive. They're analyzing every move, every word, every breath. They're wondering, did I say too much? Did I open up too far? Did I give them the chance to hurt me? This isn't a game. This is survival mode. They've been hurt before. Abandoned, misunderstood, pushed to the side. So now they build walls, not because they don't want love, but because they don't trust. It'll stay. Let me tell you something powerful. Avoidance isn't about not wanting connection. It's about desperately wanting it but feeling too unsafe to lean in. And that's where the quiet comes from. That's where the shutdown happens. It's not apathy, it's emotional self-defense. You might think they're calm and detached, but inside, there's a war happening, a push-pull, a longing for closeness and a fear of drowning in it. And here's the kicker, they wish you could see that. They wish you could see that their silence is a scream, that their distance is actually fear in disguise. You've got to stop taking it personally and start seeing the truth. It's not about you, it's about their wiring. So the next time you feel ignored by someone avoidant, ask yourself, what would it feel like to live in a world where connection felt like danger? Because that's what it is for them. It's not rejection. It's not manipulation. It's a defense mechanism built from wounds that never got to heal. And that's the truth. Most people never get to hear this side. But if you're watching this, now you do. There's power in understanding this. Power in not walking away when things get quiet. Because maybe, just maybe, your patience could be the one thing that makes them feel safe enough to finally stay. Let me break something down for you. When an avoidant person suddenly goes quiet, your first instinct is probably to think, did I do something wrong? Or worse, they don't care. But that silence, that sudden pullback, it's not about you. It's a defense mechanism so deeply wired into their system that even they don't fully understand it. It's like a smoke alarm going off in their chest. The closer they feel to someone, the louder it rings. That quiet isn't empty. It's full of fear, full of overthinking, full of panic about being seen. You know what they're doing in those quiet moments? They're not just scrolling mindlessly or zoning out. They're running 100 scenarios in their head. What if they say something wrong? What if you see the real them and leave? What if opening up means getting hurt all over again? And instead of leaning in, they retreat. Because to them, silence feels safer than vulnerability. It's not that they don't want to talk. It's not that they don't have feelings. It's that their entire nervous system is screaming, back off, shut down, protect yourself. And it happens fast. 1 second they're in the moment with you, maybe even laughing, and the next, gone, shut down, withdrawn. That switch flips so quickly because their body isn't built for emotional exposure. They've trained themselves to survive by being distant. And here's the hard part. Most people take that silence personally. They make it mean something. It doesn't. They think they're being rejected or punished. But the truth is, the avoidant is sitting with a storm inside, and they have no idea how to let someone in without losing themselves. So they go quiet. It's not coldness. It's protection. It's not a lack of love. It's fear dressed up as independence. They are hyper-aware of how much space they're giving you. And even when they pull away, they're thinking about you, wondering if you noticed, wondering if you're mad. But they still stay quiet, because to speak would be to risk. And risk is terrifying. Vulnerability is terrifying. You've got to understand this. Silence isn't the absence of feeling, it's the overflow of it. If you've ever been on the receiving end of this silence, you've probably felt confused, hurt, frustrated, and that's valid. You deserve connection too. But I want to challenge you to see it differently. That person who's pulled away, they're not trying to hurt you. They're trying not to hurt themselves. It's not about punishing you. It's about protecting their heart from something it already believes will go wrong. The avoidant doesn't see silence the way you do. For you, it feels like abandonment. For them, it feels like control, like finally taking a breath, like putting the walls back up before they fall apart. It's not healthy, but it makes sense when you know where it comes from. Usually, childhood, trauma, experiences where opening up meant pain. So now they armor up, and silence is their shield. But here's the beautiful part. Silence doesn't have to mean the end. It can be a pause. It can be a chance for both people to breathe. And if you can hold space in those moments, not chase, not demand, but gently remind them you're still here, that's where the shift happens. That's where safety starts to grow. Because what avoidants need most is what they're most afraid of: consistency, patience, and understanding. That doesn't mean you let yourself be ignored or disrespected, but it does mean recognizing that silence doesn't always equal disconnection. Sometimes it's the loudest cry for help they know how to give. And sometimes your quiet presence can be the first thing that ever made them feel safe. Absolutely. Let's be real. Most people look at avoidance and think they don't care, like they're just cold, distant, unreachable. But that's the biggest misunderstanding of all. Avoidants care, sometimes too much. That's the problem. Their feelings run deep, so deep that even they can't make sense of it. And because they don't know how to manage those intense emotions, they bury them, numb them, push them down with silence, space, or distraction. You want to know the truth. Avoidants feel everything. They just don't show it the way you might. When they like you, it scares them. When they start to trust you, it terrifies them. Because trust means letting someone in, and letting someone in means giving up control. And giving up control, that's their biggest fear. Because at some point in their life, someone they trusted either left, hurt them, or made them feel unsafe. And now their brain is wired to believe that closeness equals pain. So here's what happens. They feel something real, something big, and instead of moving toward it, they freeze. They go quiet. They pull back. Not because they want to hurt you, but because that emotional intensity short-circuits their system. It feels unsafe. So they shut it down, not to stop the connection, but to stop themselves from falling apart. You think they're heartless. Think again. That text they didn't send, they wrote it 5 times and deleted every version. That conversation they avoided, it replayed in their head all day. That space they took, it wasn't peaceful. It was filled with guilt, shame, and overthinking. They care. They just don't know how to care out loud. And it's exhausting for them. You ever feel like you're walking on eggshells waiting for them to open up? Imagine being them, living in that inner conflict 24/7, wanting closeness but fearing it, craving connection but terrified of what happens if it goes wrong. That is not easy. That is a war they fight with themselves every single day. And here's the kicker. Most avoidants don't even realize they're doing it. They've spent years convincing themselves that they're just independent or not emotional. But deep down, there's a little kid in them that still remembers what it felt like to be let down, left, forgotten. And that kid built walls to survive. Strong ones, high ones, ones that even love has a hard time climbing over. So if you're dealing with someone like that, here's what you need to know. They're not broken. They're not heartless. They're scared. That fear looks like distance. It looks like disinterest. But if you look closer, it's just fear trying to stay safe. It's love with a helmet on. Does that mean you put up with emotional unavailability forever? No. You need consistency. You need communication. You deserve effort. But it also means not taking their silence as proof that they don't care. Because so often the silence is where they care the most. It's just tangled in fear, past pain, and a survival mode. They don't know how to switch off. If you can understand that, you change the game. You stop chasing, stop blaming, stop needing constant reassurance, and instead you see them. And when people feel seen without being forced, that's when the magic happens. That's when the walls start to come down. Not because you kicked them down, but because they finally felt safe enough to lower them themselves. Avoidants don't need fixing. They need space, time, and a little grace. And if they're really trying, even just a little, let that effort count. Because for someone like them, vulnerability is effort. And if you've ever loved one, you know it's not that they don't feel, it's that they feel so much, they don't know how to survive it. You know what's heartbreaking about avoidance? They often think they're the problem, not just in one relationship, in every relationship. They walk around wearing a quiet kind of shame, like they're too much and not enough at the same time. They blame themselves for not being able to open up, for not knowing the right thing to say, for freezing when emotions rise, for shutting down when someone just wants them to let them in. Here's the truth nobody talks about. Avoidants don't avoid people because they don't care. They avoid people because they care so much that they're afraid they'll mess it up. That fear of getting too close and then ruining everything is so deeply rooted, it paralyzes them. So instead of facing the possibility of love and connection, they pull back, they isolate. They think, if I just stay away, I can't hurt them, I can't disappoint them. But do you know what that does over time? It chips away at their sense of worth. Little by little, they start to believe they're incapable of love, that they're bad at it, that something is wrong with them. And that inner voice, it gets louder. You're too cold. You're too much work. Nobody's ever going to stay. It's a brutal voice. One that doesn't just whisper, it screams. Avoidants often grew up in environments where emotions weren't safe. Maybe they had to be the strong one. Maybe vulnerability got them hurt. Maybe no one ever showed them how to deal with their feelings. So they learned to shut down to survive. They learned to solve everything alone. And now as adults they still carry that armor like it's the only thing keeping them from falling apart. What they don't realize is that the armor they built to protect themselves is also what's keeping people out. But here's the kicker. They want connection. They just don't know how to believe they deserve it. Avoidants are constantly stuck in this internal push and pull. One part of them wants love so badly it aches. Another part is screaming, run before they see the real you. And that realness, that's what they're afraid will drive people away. So they hide behind silence, behind distance, behind I'm fine. But inside it's chaos. You need to understand that for an avoidant, silence isn't peace, it's protection. Distance isn't apathy, it's survival. They're not trying to hurt you, they're trying to protect themselves. And most of the time, they don't even know they're doing it. It's a reflex, a deeply wired defense mechanism. But here's what's beautiful. Avoidants can grow, they can change. The story in their head that says they're unlovable, it's not true. It never was. But they've heard it for so long, maybe from a parent, a partner, or their own mind, that they've started to believe it. What they need isn't someone to fix them. What they need is someone to remind them they're worth loving. That emotions aren't weaknesses. That asking for connection isn't a burden. That being human isn't wrong. And if you're someone who loves an avoidant, remember this. Patience doesn't mean waiting forever. But it does mean understanding the fear underneath the behavior. You don't chase, you don't beg, but you do see them. And sometimes that's enough to make a dent in the wall they built. Avoidants carry wounds they never talk about. But when they start doing the work, when they start getting curious about their reactions, their silence, their fear, that's when things shift. That's when they realize the problem was never that they felt too little. It's that they were never taught it was okay to feel at all. They're not broken. They're just learning how to be safe in love. That takes time. That takes grace. But most of all, it takes belief. Belief that no matter how messy it feels, they are still worthy of being understood. Avoidants don't want to be fixed. That's the part so many people miss. They're not some broken project waiting for you to come in and renovate their heart. They're not asking for someone to come along and solve them. They just want to feel seen, understood, accepted for who they are, without pressure, without judgment, without someone constantly trying to pull more out of them than they're ready to give. You have to realize something. Avoidants are tired, not just physically, but emotionally. They're carrying years of internal battles, fighting to be okay, trying to be enough, forcing themselves to pretend that nothing ever bothers them, and they're damn good at it too. They've mastered the art of being fine, but it's not real. It's armor. Armor that hides the fact that deep down they're scared of being too much or not enough for the people they care about. When you come into their life with the energy of, let me fix you, it triggers something deep in them. It reminds them of all the times they were told they weren't okay the way they were, that something about them needed to be fixed before they were lovable. So what do? They pull back, even if they love you, even if they want you, because suddenly they're not safe anymore. People with avoidant tendencies often grew up in environments where emotional expression was punished or ignored, so they adapted. They stopped expressing. They became self-reliant, hyper-independent, and now as adults being vulnerable feels like walking into battle without armor. So if you show up trying to change them, you're not helping. You're confirming their worst fear, that who they are isn't good enough. Here's what they do need. Someone who doesn't flinch at their silence. Someone who doesn't force their way in. Someone who just stays, who lets them come forward in their own time, who creates a space that says, you don't have to be anything more than you are right now, and I'm not going anywhere. Avoidants want love like anyone else. They crave it, but they've never seen a version of love that didn't cost them their autonomy, their space, or their safety. So they associate love with pressure, with obligation, with losing themselves. That's why they shut down. When someone gets too close, they're afraid love will swallow them whole. But when love feels safe, when it doesn't demand constant emotional performance or turn their silence into a crime, that's when they start to open up, slowly, quietly, but deeply. They won't give you fireworks, but they'll give you something more real, something rooted, something honest. So no, they don't need you to fix them. They need you to stop trying to rewrite their wiring in one conversation. Healing doesn't happen on your timeline. You don't yank open a flower and expect it to bloom. You wait, you nurture, you let it open on its own. Avoidants have a deep internal radar for pressure. They can feel it even when you think you're being subtle. And the moment they feel like they're being pushed, they'll emotionally evacuate. They won't always leave the room. Sometimes they'll sit right beside you, but they'll be miles away on the inside. That's the cost of trying to fix someone who never asked to be changed. They just want to be loved without conditions, without a checklist, without a timeline. That's the medicine. That's the healing. And that's when their walls start to drop. Not because someone broke them down, but because someone made them feel safe enough to take them down on their own. So if you really want to love an avoidant, don't force. Just stay quietly, consistent, and most of all, without asking them to be anything other than exactly who they are. You know what most people don't understand? That when avoidants go quiet, they're not shutting you out. They're shutting the world out because their mind is flooded. Their nervous system is in overdrive. And they're doing the one thing that kept them safe when everything else felt like too much pulling back. That silence isn't a punishment, it's protection. They've learned that talking about how they feel doesn't always help. In fact, for them, talking often makes it worse because then it gets real. And real can be terrifying when your brain is wired to survive, not connect. So they go quiet, they retreat, and from the outside it looks cold. It looks distant. It looks like they don't care. But that's not the truth. That's never the truth. On the inside, it's a storm. It's questions. It's second-guessing everything. It's trying to stay in control of something, anything, because emotions are messy, and messy never felt safe. This isn't about not feeling. Avoidants feel deeply. That's what people get wrong. It's not a lack of emotion. It's too much emotion. It's so intense. They don't know how to process it in real time. So they hit pause, go silent, build space between themselves and whatever triggered that internal flood, because it's the only way they've learned to stay afloat. Now let's be real. This can be confusing as hell for the person on the other side. You reach out and they don't respond. You check in and they shut down. You try to help and they retreat even further. It feels personal, rejection level personal. But most of the time, it's not about you. It's about them trying to find solid ground again before they completely lose it. You don't see the internal fight happening behind the silence. The voice that says, don't mess this up, while the fear screams, but don't get too close. The push and pull of craving connection and fearing it at the same time. That's what's happening in the quiet. It's chaos, but it's quiet chaos. And sometimes they don't respond because they're terrified they'll say the wrong thing. They'll open up and be misunderstood, judged, or worst of all, abandoned. So silence becomes the safer choice, because at least in silence there's control, there's distance, there's less risk. So how do you love someone through that? You resist the urge to chase. You stop trying to crack them open with questions. You hold space. You let them know you're there without crowding them. You send the text that says, no pressure to respond, just wanted you to know I'm here. You make it clear that their silence doesn't scare you, and it doesn't change how you feel. That's how trust is built with someone who's avoidant. Not by pushing for rest, but by honoring the need for space without taking it personally. Here's the truth. The silence won't last forever. It never does. But the way you show up during it, that's what they remember. That's what tells them, you'll ship with me, even when you're silent. Avoidants aren't broken. They're just protecting the most tender parts of themselves. And when they finally break the silence, when they choose to speak, it's not because you dragged it out of them. It's because they felt safe enough to let it out. So, the next time someone you care about goes quiet, don't panic, don't press, don't assume, just be still with them. Because sometimes the loudest way to say, I love you, is in your ability to wait in silence. Let me tell you something that's gonna sting a little. That silence you get from avoidance, it's not silence because they don't care. It's silence because they care so damn much. It paralyzes them. They're not sitting there cold and distant. They're sitting there overthinking every move, every word, every emotion. They're running every what if scenario, like a movie on loop in their head. What if I open up and they walk away? What if I say too much? What if they don't get it? What if I become a burden? That I need space moment. It's not arrogance. It's not ego. It's fear. It's survival mode. They've spent their life being the strong one, the composed one, the one who doesn't fall apart in front of people. So when they feel overwhelmed, they retreat into the one thing they know, silence. But behind that quiet is someone who desperately wants to be seen without having to explain them. Someone who wants to be loved without having to perform. And that's hard, because vulnerability doesn't come naturally to them. It feels like danger, not safety. So when an avoidant opens even just a little, it's huge. It means they try, and you better believe that too. Don't take their silence as distance. Don't write them off. Sometimes the strongest connection comes from the patience to stay, even when the words disappear. That silence, it's never empty. It's full of everything they're too scared to say out loud.